All right, good morning, everyone. How is it going? It's so good to see all of you guys. Let me know that you're there. I'm seeing some comments come in. So what I'm going to try to do with this live stream is to be a little more mindful of my people that are watching the replay. So I will try to not be as spastic. I'm going to try to answer your comments after I get through my little to-do list here of this high-fat carnivore diet and how to adapt over and just some things that I've seen people go through. So as you're coming in, feel free to jump in there. I will address this question really quick though, with a simple answer. So if I see a question, I'll try to answer it if it fits in line with what I'm saying. But this is a question I get quite a bit, and it says, would you still start a high-fat carnivore diet if you still have fat to lose on your body? 110% yes, absolutely. I will talk more about that, but so I have a little to-do list again that I'm going to go through and try to be as organized as possible, because I know people on the replay get frustrated with me for jumping around so much. But I get so excited to interact with you guys. It's so much fun for me to interact with you guys. So I do get a little spastic on these live streams. So first of all, I want to talk about what is this approach? What is the high-fat diet, carnivore diet? Why would you want to do it? So I'm going to talk about that first, reasons why you would want to try it. I see some Georgia in the house. Okay, cool. I'm seeing comments come in, so you guys are there. All right, happy Miss Tree. All right, cool, cool, cool. All my peeps are in the house. There's my little spastic moment, getting excited. Okay, cool. So why switch to this approach? I'll talk about what it is exactly, and stuff that can block your adaptation of going into this. I'm going to talk about different fats that you can use, and then I'm going to talk about troubleshooting. I collected quite a few questions from Instagram, and I will also take, sorry, dropped my papers. I will take some questions live here on the stream as well, but I'm going to get I'm going to get through this. Someone says that YouTube just showed her an ad for vegan food products. I hear that a lot on my channel, which is just so interesting. But you know what? It is what it is. So first of all, what is this approach? So let me clarify for you. If you haven't watched a lot of my videos and you're like, what is this all about? A high-fat carnivore diet, the way that I do it is, Stephanie Keto Person is my coach. And by the way, you guys, I think it's her birthday today. She's really secretive about her birthday, but Facebook told me it was her birthday. So if you know her, make sure that you send her a happy birthday somewhere on Instagram or Facebook. But she has been the reason I started doing this. I was doing a standard carnivore diet for a good year, and then I started running into some problems, which I'll talk about here in the why you want to switch type of deal. But I switched to this approach in February of this year. I had been doing carnivore diet for a year and some change before I switched to that. And what it is eating at least 200 grams of fat per day and keeping your protein moderated. Now, it's not low protein. Some people say it's low protein, but you will be in ketosis for this version of the carnivore diet. Now, the other version of the carnivore diet, everyone's bio-individual, everyone's different. And by the way, this is not medical advice. I am not a healthcare professional. I'm not a doctor. You guys know the drill. I try to say that in every video. I'm just sharing my experience, and I'm sharing experience of kind of apprenticing under Stephanie and talking with thousands of you guys here on YouTube as well as on Instagram. So this is just that. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But I switched to that high fat diet in February, and it is a moderated protein approach. So that's the part that I think a lot of people don't miss. And I was not in ketosis when I was doing a standard carnivore diet. My protein was probably, 120 grams per day, 130 or more. I was eating closer to that 2 pounds of meat per day. I eat well under 1 pound of meat now per day. And I eat a lot of fat. So my fat ratio right now is closer to 85% or 90% of my diet. Eventually, I'll probably back it down to 80. I'm kind of playing with it right now to see what my protein threshold is. But I'm in a deep level of ketosis and this works really well for me. Now, the reason why I switched over to this approach, and I've done some videos about it, I think I put a link below this video about the five different warning signs or reason why you might want to try this. Number one, you see your A1C going up. Okay, I see Grace on here. Yay, I love all these comments. Hi, Grace. So I have a link below this video for a company I work with called Let's Get Checked, where you can check a lot of this stuff at home. So a lot of people that will come to keto or carnivore diet do have either pre-diabetes or diabetes. So if you have one of those metabolic conditions like pre-diabetes or diabetes, I would definitely recommend going towards a high fat approach. So at least 200 grams of fat and moderated protein depending on your height and weight. Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Victoria, for the super chat. I really, really appreciate that. You guys, that really helps to support the channel, and I just really, really, really appreciate that. Okay, and I will try to get to some of these questions. I'll try to scroll back. So I do see some questions coming in, you guys, so I'll try to scroll back. Again, I want to help my people that are watching the replay. A lot of them have been getting really triggered lately. That apparently I talk to you guys too much while I talk. So number one, if you have diabetes, if you have some kind of a metabolic syndrome that you're working with, or you have an autoimmune condition, I'm going to recommend that you do this high fat approach. But Let's Get Checked. I think it's like $49, and you can use my code YOGI20 to get 20% off. Check your A1C there at home. And it's more of an average of the last 3 months of that blood sugar. And again, you can check and see if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic. So this high fat approach will definitely more than likely help you to get the A1C to go down. You can also use a continuous glucose monitor, again, to see if the higher amounts of protein is causing your blood sugar to have spikes when you're not exercising or you're not working out. You're just having these crazy spikes. That was happening a lot to me, a lot of gluconeogenesis in the middle of the night in my sleep. And that leads me to number two, sleep disturbances. So I started having a lot of sleep disturbances on a classic carnivore diet where I was eating 2 pounds of meat per day. Oh my gosh, you guys are literally amazing. Another super chat. Thank you so much. Like, this literally really, really, really helps with the channel. I mean, it just does. It really does, because I'm kind of doing this full time now. So yeah, I'm looking at questions as they're coming in. I'm trying not to miss them. But the sleep disturbance, for me, it was happening. I was having cortisol spikes in the night, a lot of gluconeogenesis, and I confirmed that with a continuous glucose monitor. Now, you can always keep a Keto Mojo. I put a link to the continuous glucose monitor below this video in the information section, as well as a Keto Mojo. I think at bare minimum, you should have a Keto Mojo just to check and see what your blood sugar is doing. If you're going to do a standard carnivore diet, or if you're going to do a very meat heavy keto diet, just to see, because, it's funny, in the keto community for a really long time, everyone was terrified of protein. Everyone was like, steak turns into cake. It's terrible for you. And then it totally swung the other way, where everyone is very focused on having high protein. And so I think there needs to be, for me, there had to be kind of a middle ground where I'm getting adequate protein to build muscle, but also still be in ketosis, right? I couldn't do that super high protein because it started causing these issues for me, like the sleep disturbance, the A1C going up, and I had previously been pre-diabetic and had some autoimmune issues. So, some of us are just going to be a little bit more sensitive, and our protein threshold is going to be lower. So I think when you're doing a keto or carnivore diet, the amount of protein that everyone's going to be able to eat is a bit different. So you can see some people that can get away with more protein than other people and still be able to get into that therapeutic ketosis, to still be in ketosis. Let's see, I'll answer super chat questions. Is it normal for ketones to be higher than 2.5 when doing ketovore? Is that safe? Mine are 2.8 to 2.9. Yeah, it's totally safe. And what you're going to find is that the longer that you are in ketosis, the more your ketones are going to kind of go down. So your ketones will lower the more and more that you're in ketosis. When I first started doing high fat carnivore, and this was a year after I had done just standard carnivore, like I said, I had thought I was in ketosis, but I really wasn't. My ketones would be like a 0.8 or 0.5. And so when I started doing this, my ketones were like 4.5, 5.0, and that lasted for a couple of weeks, and then they're down. So right now my ketones probably stay between a 1.5 and a 3.0. So that 2.5 to 2.8, 2.9 is great. And I'll answer this because it's on topic. By sleep disturbances, do you mean waking up at 2 or 3 a.m. every night? I'm experiencing that as well and can't go back to sleep. Grace, that is probably, yes, that could definitely be it. And it could be cortisol. So it's like, it's so many things. It's so hard for me to know just from like one question. You could be having just a lot of stress happen in your life that could also cause it. But for me, when I lowered my protein and also electrolyte management, which I will talk about, that helped me to start getting sleep through the night, as well as histamine. So I owe you guys a video. Some of you guys that follow me on Instagram, I've been talking about doing a video about how I started not waking up to pee all night and not waking up in the night. Histamines were a big part of that as well. So Grace, you may have something going on with histamines. So yeah. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about that made me switch over to this higher fat approach was, and this is more for the women, but men, you can experience hormonal issues as well, but my cycle just would not regulate. I was not getting my cycle on time. And so I will answer this question. It says, were you doing 200 grams of fat when you got your cycle back, right? Yes. So I quit all fasting. Really quit. I was really doing just intermittent fasting, but I was doing 0 extended fasting, but it wasn't enough to bring my cycle back regularly. I was supposed to get my cycle today. It can't, sorry guys. I know the guys are like, I don't want to hear this, but I think it's important to, when your body is so in sync. I mean, this is the 8th cycle I've gotten in a row now since I switched to this approach. So as soon as I quit doing all fasting, no more intermittent fasting, eating within 30 minutes of waking, within 2 weeks, my cycle came back, and it had been irregular for years. I mean, before I even started carnivore, it was irregular, and doing carnivore, just a standard carnivore, was not enough to bring my hormonal function back. So I was not ovulating. I was having really painful cycles. I just did a whole video about PCOS and estrogen dominance, how this high fat carnivore diet approach helped me with both of those. And it's not just the food. There's a whole lifestyle bunch of stuff as well. And this is a good question, since I am talking about cycle. Says, my cycle is super light on carnivore. I know you got your cycle back. Is it different than it used to be? Yes, it is. So for me, and it's indicative a lot of estrogen dominance. When I turned about 35, and I'm 41, I just turned 41 in June. When I turned about 35, my cycle went all of a sudden from 5 days to 7 days long. And it got to be so horrendous that the first 3 days, like I couldn't leave the house for the first 3 days. I would try to teach my yoga classes, and I couldn't get through the hour-long class without having to run to the bathroom. I mean, it was very severe, and that was years. So when I went to the carnivore diet, that kind of didn't change. And in fact, I started having more irregular cycles. So it would be like a month or two that I wouldn't get it. And I was also doing a lot of fasting too. So I have to throw that in there. It's not 100% carnivore diet to blame. But even after I quit the fasting, my cycle didn't regulate. So once I switched to this high fat approach, my cycles, I can totally leave the house on days 1, 2, and 3. I actually went swimming today. Today's day 1. I just went and swam laps for an hour at the Y, and totally fine. No sharks in the water. And it's gone to 5 days. So my cycle has gone back to 5 days. You know, here at 41 years old, my cycle is better than it was when I was like 35. It's amazing. And I'm ovulating every month. Everything's good. And this is a good question too that kind of goes along. How much are you eating after you wake? Then when is your next meal? So Roadline, it's a little different every single day. When I first started, it was just like a tablespoon of like beef tallow. And I'm going to talk about fats in a little bit here. So I would just like, I wasn't really hungry because I had been used to not eating until 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock every day. I had actually been intermittent fasting since before it was like a thing. Like I started intermittent fasting years ago, and I just thought I was just not eating. Right. So yeah, I wasn't hungry when I first started. So I would just eat like a tablespoon of beef tallow or beef suet. And then I'd, wait an hour or so if I was hungry, and I'd have like, bacon or egg yolks or just a super high fatty meal. But now when I wake up, I'm not as strict. Like sometimes I'll wait an hour or so just because I'm getting my daughter ready, and then I will eat a breakfast after I've been awake an hour, hour and a half, and I'm okay with it. My hormones are still good. My cycle's still good. I'm still ovulating, all the good stuff, no pain, no crazy estrogen dominant stuff. So I'm okay with it. But I was super strict with that for 6 months solid, and super strict with getting at least 200 grams of fat per day, not dipping below that at all. So that's what I recommend to people when they first start that, just 200 grams minimum, and then you're going to moderate your protein. This is why I recommend also Stephanie's $15 a month keto group, because you can go in there and you can search through everything. She's got all the stuff archived. She does mini consultations, and then you can get a regular consultation with her, but she talks about kind of how to with all this stuff. And it's such a valuable resource that, I mean, I'm in there searching stuff and watching when she does mini consults. Like, I'm always learning more and more and more. There's always to learn. So a lot of the stuff I'm even saying here and in my videos is like, I've watched her give mini consultations. I've talked to her. Her and I probably talk every single day. And I'm always asking questions like, you know, why is this person having this problem or that problem? This is a question that has, it's kind of in topic. Do you know if keto or carnivore can help endometriosis? I personally have not experienced that, but I have seen people that have had tremendous results doing a high fat diet, whether it be keto or carnivore, with endometriosis, with those problems. So I have seen it happen, but I have not personally experienced that. Patricia wants to know, can this diet overall help with any autoimmune disorder? I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not going to sit up here and say it's a cure-all, but I have talked to quite a few people. One of my favorite people, her name is Emily Penton. She's known on Instagram as Carnivore Minds. She's a dear friend of mine. She's been on my channel a few times. She had severe debilitating MS. I mean, she was in the hospital, couldn't walk, severe. And she intuitively, no one told her to, but she intuitively did a high fat carnivore diet. So she's eating a ton of beef fat. And she was in a very bad place. She's talked about on her channel living in a trailer park on food stamps, right? And she also had severe bipolar disorder. And the more and more I read about bipolar and depression, these kind of mental issues, I've had a lot of depression, anxiety, that those have an autoimmune connection as well. So I do see people that go on like either therapeutic keto or this high fat carnivore diet, the way that I do it, that have had a lot of success in treating autoimmune condition. Emily has been doing carnivore, I want to say 2 years. She read Amber O'Hearn's book. Amber O'Hearn is a high fat carnivore. She's been doing high fat carnivore for years and years and years, since before Instagram and before any of us came out and tried this stuff. So she's a great resource as well. So I know that was longer than I wanted to spend on page one. But those are just some reasons why you may want to try this approach. So your A1C is going up, you can check that. Another thing I didn't mention is you're starting to have issues with your kidneys, either kidney pain or, you know, my GFR, which there's a test below this video. My GFR was like in the toilet. I wasn't at stage 1 kidney disease, but it was showing my kidneys were under a tremendous amount of stress. That was electrolyte imbalance, but also too much protein for my body to process and handle. So once I lowered that protein down and upped the fat, my GFR, the kidney numbers, went back to a 90, went into good range. I've retested, and that has gone really well. My thyroid actually also started giving me trouble as well. So I put a thyroid test below here. So yeah. Oh my gosh, that just scared the crap out of me. That just scared me. I was like, what? Hinge hemorrhoids? I'm guessing this is a take on Hinge herbivore. Is it possible to raise estrogen on carnivore? Mine is always too low. Please ignore my name. LOL. That's also something I have not had experience with. I've had a lot of experience with getting my progesterone to go up. So I had very low progesterone. But I think that a high fat approach will be helpful for hormonal balance, period. Again, I put Stephanie's information below this video. I also put Nutrition with Judy. She's a friend of mine. Her information, she's an NTP. Let me see. Jody, I skipped your question. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through my list, and then I'm going to go back through and try to get all the questions. So if I don't answer your question, you can put it back up there. Again, I'm trying to, for my people on the replay that get upset with me for jumping around too much, so I'm trying to stick to topic. So if I saw your question and it wasn't on topic, then I'll try to go back to it, and you can also repost it in a minute. Okay, so just hang in there with me. But this actually goes with where I'm going next. This question, it says, did you ease into upping your fat, or was it an immediate switch? What side effects did you have by switching? I just got past the carnivore loose BMs, and I fear those will come back. So that actually is right on topic. Let's see, with adapting over. And the biggest questions I get are people that have nausea, people that are having gallbladder issues. They don't know it's gallbladder issues. People that are having the loose stools. That's the biggest thing I see. Just, you know, and it's a lot of the time it's gallbladder problems, and people don't know that they have any gallbladder problems at all until they try to eat a lot of fat, until they push the fat up. So I've seen Stephanie with people tell them, you know, start off with a lower ratio. So start off with like a 70-30. So a more standard carnivore diet. So 70% protein, 30% fat, and then work your way up gradually. And in that process, if you have gallbladder sludge or if you're having nausea, you know, go slowly with the fat. Stay away from rendered fats completely. Try to do like a raw fat if you can, and take some ox biles and ox bile salt. And I actually put ox bile, the one that I've seen people use to have a lot of success with, underneath this video. So yeah, the biggest question I got when I asked for questions on Instagram, people were freaking out about the diarrhea, the loose stools. That's normal, I think, for a lot of people. For me, I had been carnivore for a year. And yes, Mrs. Tree, you just nailed it. That's what I was going to say. She says, I take digestive enzymes with HCl, ox bile, and I take milk thistle, and both help me so much with ketovore. Yes. The HCl enzymes were very important for me when I first switched over to this high fat carnivore diet approach, because I had adapted over to carnivore, but I hadn't adapted to eating a lot of fat. I was still doing like a pretty high protein version of the carnivore diet because I had this fear of fat, that if I ate fat, it was going to make me fat. And that is just simply not true. If you eat more energy than your body burns off, then you will gain fat. It doesn't matter if you're eating Skittles. It doesn't matter if you're eating steak. It's just like, it's the thing. And people are getting upset. Just if I miss your question, just retype it, because it's a lot for me to try to read off of a paper and monitor the chat. So I'm not trying to be mean or ignore you. I'm just literally trying to get through a list of things. So and hit everything I think is important when someone's going over to high fat carnivore diet. So yeah, I think that a lot of people will have this issue with digestion, and I did. I had to take the HCl, and I put the link to the one that I use. I use the brand Thorne, THORNE. I use the Thorne HCl brand, and I took that for 6 weeks with my dinner. So after 6 weeks, I was able to come off of it, and I haven't taken it ever since, and I've been totally fine. So I do think a lot of people are going to have issues with loose stools, just because our bodies are not used to digesting that much fat, you know? Let's see. This is a good question. I'm on the road all the time. What would be the best fats I could use to keep in the truck? Ghee. Ghee is a great one. And so I actually have a list here of fats that you guys can use, because this is a big question that people get. This is my fats page, so I'll jump into that. Okay, so with ghee and with butter, now those are the easiest fats, I think, for a lot of people to get. They're the most convenient because you can get them at the grocery store. With a lot of people, they can't get like raw beef suet, or they can't get fat trimmings necessarily like from a grocery store, but you can get butter and ghee. The only thing I will say about butter and ghee is just to make sure that you're not having a histamine reaction. So as I was talking to Grace earlier, who says she's waking up in the night, you know, that could be cortisol from gluconeogenesis, number one, which is why you would want to make sure you're in ketosis, make sure you're not living in that gluconeogenic metabolic state. It's very inefficient to be there all the time. You either want to be in a glucose metabolism or a ketone metabolism. And if you have any kind of metabolic issue going on, it's just going to be a lot harder for your body. You're going to produce more cortisol. It's just going to be more inefficient for you to kind of hover in between the two metabolisms, from what I've seen. Again, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. But going back to the butter and the ghee, they could cause a histamine issue. So make sure that you're not getting any kind of headache or rash or itching. The thing that can happen with some people with butter and ghee is that they will have their blood sugar go up. So again, having a Keto Mojo or a continuous glucose monitor can be super, super helpful just to make sure that you're not getting a blood sugar bump from that fat, right? So try it out alone. Try to just eat some butter or just eat some ghee by itself. Don't mix it with anything else, and just see if your blood sugar stays stable, because fat should be one that you don't see a big jump in your blood sugar. So depending on how my body is handling histamine at a particular time, I do have reactions to butter every night. It's weird, but it kind of goes with how my body is handling histamine. So make sure, if you're like, what's histamine? I did an interview with Dr. Becky Campbell here on my channel. Dr. Becky Campbell is like histamine expert. She's amazing, but we really dive more into that. So when we talk about fats, some people may have that reaction to butter or ghee, and you may not have a reaction if you just use a little bit, because you kind of have this histamine bucket, so the amount of histamine that your body can handle. And when you start putting in a ton of butter and ghee, all of a sudden your body is like, whoa. Okay, I got a super chat, so I'm going to jump around. So you are saying 200 grams of fat is the minimum. Does it depend on your body weight, total calories? What is the fat to protein ratio calorie wise? So for most people that I have seen, 200 grams of fat is where you start. And this isn't just coming from me. This is coming from old school keto people. Stephanie Keto Person. There's a lot of scientific material out there that says that that's kind of where you want to start. To get into that therapeutic level of ketosis, you want to probably be, to start off with, now you can always play around with this, but 90% fat, 10% protein. That's where I'm great. You can play around with it again to see if you can get your protein threshold up a little bit after you've gotten yourself keto adapted, which can take 6 weeks, 3 months, sometimes 6 months, depending on your stress. I'll talk a little bit about things here that would block that keto adaptation. But, the protein is the lever, depending on your height and your weight, that and your sex, that you're going to go up or down. So everyone's a little different with how much protein. I'm almost 5'8", and I try to stay, 55 grams of protein per day, give or take. Again, I'm trying to play with that a little bit. But when I first started off, it was like a minimum of 200 grams of protein per day. And then I try to stick around 55 grams of protein. And then this is a question that goes along with this. 200 grams by weight, or calculate. Yeah, 200 grams of fat as a macro. So I'm an American. Our system is dumb for calculating grams and ounces and all that. I know, it's just dumb. So I'm talking about grams as a macronutrient. So I hope that helps. So let me jump back to fats here, you guys. So butter, ghee, make sure you're not having a histamine reaction. Other fats, my favorite is beef suet. Beef suet is my favorite. What you can also do with beef suet, I have a video on this, is like render it down into a tallow. Now, beef suet is different from a regular fat. It's a bit more nutrient dense. So you're going to get different nutrients from a beef suet because it's the fat around the kidneys that you would not necessarily get from just like a regular beef fat. But beef fat's also really good too. The beef suet has that stearic acid that a lot of people are taught. It's getting a lot of buzz right now about how that's so good for your body, so good for your metabolism, so good for healing any kind of metabolic disorders. It's just extremely, extremely good for you. So I use a lot of beef suet. The other thing is that I never thought that people would have any kind of a reaction to beef suet. But now I'm seeing people sometimes have a reaction to beef suet because there is still meat attached to it. I have a video coming out this Friday where I show you guys me rendering down some beef suet, and you can see there's a lot of meat that was in that suet. So if you're going to eat raw beef suet, just know that you are going to get some protein from that beef suet. Same thing with like fat. I buy fat. You can get fat trimmings. There's going to be a little meat attached to it. So if you're, super sensitive with histamine, you may have a reaction with that. And then you can also render down that beef fat into your tallow. And I eat a lot of tallow now. I eat a lot of beef suet that's rendered down, just scoop it out by the tablespoon. For me, it tastes like butter. Maybe it's an acquired taste, but I really enjoy it. You can also use lard, leaf lard, which is like pork fat. That's an amazing source of fat that I think is very underutilized. Pork fat's really nutritious. It's really good for you as long as you tolerate it. Egg yolks are also really good sources of fat. So those are my main sources of fat that I recommend, and bacon grease is a good one too if you are okay with pork, if you don't have a reaction to pork. So yeah, those I think are the main caveats on like sources of fat that you're going to use. So, okay, let me look through here and make sure I'm hitting everything. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about adaptation. So you're going to want to keto adapt. As I mentioned, some people it'll take 6 weeks, some people 3 months, some people 6 months. Things that are going to block your keto adaptation, number one is stress. So you've got to keep your stress low. So I don't recommend people do like CrossFit or HIIT workouts if that's not something they were doing before. So, it's like a mindset. I'm going to start this new plan and this new program, and I'm going to go do CrossFit now. I've never done it before, but I'm going to start, right? So don't do that. Just keep your your exercise about the same. You can do long walks. And number two, don't fast. I know this is like counter carnivore keto culture because it's like fasting and all that stuff goes together. If you fast, you could, again, boost your cortisol levels. That will not help you adapt. And electrolytes are very, very important. I don't think we talk about them enough. That could also be another reason for some of these other issues like constipation, that you're not getting enough magnesium. So electrolytes are magnesium, potassium, sodium, a little bit of calcium. So all those things are important here. And you could block your adaptation or have issues with energy or sleep if your electrolytes are not in balance, if you're not getting those into your body, and getting good sleep. That's another part of keeping your stress low. You really want to make sure you're getting good sleep. Someone wants to know, what are the signs of having okay, I'll get back to that. What are the signs of having a histamine reaction to something? That's kind of what I mentioned earlier. So go back a little bit in the video, but basically headaches are a big one, rash, waking up a lot at night, blood sugar going up. Let's see. And someone says their blood sugar drops to 50s in the late evening. That may not be a good thing. So you may, need to eat a little bit more to get your blood sugar to balance. Question here. What about processed meat like biltong? I don't do those. I don't like those because, again, histamine reaction, harder to find satiety, and I just don't like processed meat, period. Some people do okay with those, but I really don't like them. Someone wants to know, is fried seafood allowed? Sure. I mean, just fry it in the right kind of fat. If you're going to fry it in lard or beef tallow or butter. Just don't use any of those seed oils to fry your seafood in. And, salmon's really good. Just a nice fatty fish. I think those are great. Those are a great addition to a high-fat carnivore diet. All right, let me look through this list. Yeah, so one big thing I hear a lot of also, and I think I kind of touched with this a little bit, is, all right, I'm going to get to some of these questions next. I just want to touch on nausea really quick, because a lot of people have this, or just not feeling hungry. Again, gallbladder support, ox bile. A lot of people have that sludge in their gallbladder and have no idea until they really try to push up that fat. Okay, I'm going to answer this question because Jimmy Zero Carbs has been asking this in the beginning. Hi, I'm a big fan. I weighed 527, been doing zero carb carnivore since 4/1/20. Lost 81 pounds today, but my weight has been the same for the past 3 weeks. What's your opinion on why that might be? So first of all, congratulations on 81 pounds. That is absolutely awesome. Thank you for watching and being on a part of the channel. I appreciate you so much. And a weight loss stall, I think, is something that lasts a couple months, which I know that's not really popular advice, but give it some time. And, what I have had to do, and it's not a popular thing, I'm going to talk about weight loss because that's a big question someone asked right away, is like, if I eat this way, am I going to gain weight? Well, yeah, you could if you eat too much. The whole thing with carnivore and keto, I think that we've gotten away from a little bit is the energy balance theory. And I get absolutely killed every time I bring this up. Like anytime I talk about this, people get so freaking mad. But the way I figured out my fat loss macros is I had to figure out exactly how much I was eating. So I tracked everything and I was like, okay, how much do I need to eat over a week, and I averaged out. So I tracked for a week, divided that total number of calories by 7. I was like, this is how much I'm eating. Do I lose weight with this? Do I gain weight, or is my weight stable? So I did that for 3 weeks to finally find the number where my weight was stable. So from there, I started eating in just a 300, calorie, I hate to say it, deficit underneath that number. So just maybe, Jimmy, maybe track a little bit and see if you don't lose again for another week, then just track and see where you're at. But it could be electrolytes, right? Electrolytes can cause you to hang on to water. It could be stress. Stress will drive your blood sugar up. It could be a lack of sleep. It could be so many things. It's hard to know just from one question, but let me know if that was helpful. I hope that was really helpful. Yes, and Kim has a great comment here, you guys in the chat, talking about histamine intolerance. Absolutely. Yeah, I forgot about that. Nasal congestion, sinus, yes. Irregular menstruation, yes. And Dr. Becky Campbell is a great resource for those histamines. Let's see. And I've got Becky Niles in the house. Hello, Becky. Says, every time I use beef tallow, I feel terrible. What could be causing the nausea and the lethargic feeling around 30 minutes after consuming it? So again, I think, and it's hard to know just from one question. It's like, are you eating anything with it? Are you eating a lot of protein with it? Are you just eating the tallow? It could be that it's a rendered fat, and you may want to try just like a solid raw fat, like a beef fat. That's not rendered down, because I have trouble with I can do rendered fats now, but in the very beginning, I couldn't touch rendered fat. So I went more towards like beef suet, beef fat, just eating those out of the freezer, and pork fat. I love my pork fat. I have White Oak Pastures linked below this video. I would just buy an Iberico pork belly. You could really only get a little bit out of that for bacon, and then just eat that frozen pork fat. So delicious. So, yeah, and Patty, it could also be you're intolerant to beef tallow. Let's see. Trying to look at some of these questions. Let's see. Miss Tree says my weight went up, but my size stayed same. Muscle density is heavier than fat. This is another reason for weight gain or stall on carnivore. Yes. And again, for see, Jimmy Zero Carb says, thank you so much. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and it could be your body is redistributing. This happens on weight loss journeys. Like your body is recomping. You're getting more muscle and losing fat. So make sure you use other things besides just the scale. Like I measure my waist and my hips and bust and arms and thighs. Like I measure stuff before I jump on the scale, because the scale, I have loose skin from losing 100 pounds 3 separate times in my life. So sometimes I'll retain water because my electrolytes are off. So it's a different time of the month for me. I've got different stuff going on with my hormones. So always, take your measurements also, and don't live and die by the scale. DEXA scans are really helpful. I haven't gotten one of those. So yeah. And then, are there alternatives to Oxfile? Not really that I know of. Again, this is one where I would join Stephanie's $15 a month keto group, because she has some people just do different things depending on the severity of the gallbladder issues that they have. Yeah, Becky's right on here. Scale doesn't tell the whole truth of health benefits, for sure. Not at all. And then you see people that are like so obsessed with the number. I've been guilty of that before. But they're still making progress. So don't let it get you down. Keep going. I always say, like, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Just keep going. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep showing up. Don't give up on yourself. Success is not just like this straight line. It's gonna do this quite a bit. Let's see. What do you use to track your macronutrients, fat protein ratio? I use Carb Manager personally. Becky, who's on here now, she and I did a high fat carnivore diet conversation a couple weeks ago. So you guys can go back and watch that. She uses my Fitness Pal. So, Carb Manager is the app that I have, and it's easy to use. All right. Yeah. She says frozen raw fat. Yes. Just frozen raw fat. I'm not afraid of it. It's delicious. I love it. Yes. Let me see about some of these questions. I'm looking. So if you guys, if you had a question and I missed it, go ahead and type it back in the chat and I will get to you. I'm going to try to make sure I've gotten all these Instagram questions because I kind of wrote my little outline based around a lot of these questions that I got on Instagram. But here's one that I missed. It says, I've been high fat, moderate protein for about 4 months now, and I have zero energy. Any advice? So this, I would definitely make sure that your electrolytes are balanced, because if your electrolytes are not balanced, and when I switched over from Carnivore, having balanced my electrolytes on Carnivore to a high-fat Carnivore, my electrolytes went crazy for a little bit. It was bizarre. I think I just lost a ton more water because I went into that deep therapeutic level of ketosis. So I did have to work hard to rebalance those electrolytes, and I was having afternoon crashes. I was like, what's going on? I'm exhausted. So I did have to work hard to rebalance those electrolytes. So that's really, you know, again, I think electrolytes are very underrated. Let's see, this is a good question. How do you track meats like ribeye? The fat content can visibly vary so much, but plugging it in the app is just based on total ounces. Yeah, and this is a weird one, you know, this, you kind of have to find one and stick to it. And yeah, that you're really not concerned about how much fat, you know, unless you want to get the 200 grams of fat, but I don't even count the fat on the meat. I count the fat on the plate. So how much, you know, for my dinner last night, I put 3 tablespoons of my rendered beef suet on the plate with beef cheeks, and beef cheeks are very fatty meat, but I wasn't even worried about the fat content in those beef cheeks. I was looking more at the, you know, the fat on my plate, the 3 tablespoons of the beef suet. This is a good question. Seeing it says, late to the party, trying to balance electrolytes, any set ratios. So this is, again, going to be different for everybody. It's going to depend on the climate you live in, your height, your weight. If you have any kind of thyroid issues, people with thyroid issues, Hashimoto's, they really have to make sure they get enough sodium. So important for those people. But you kind of have to play around with it. So I find my happy place is around, you know, 2 to 3 teaspoons of salt per day, all through the day on my food. If I don't get it on my food, I put it in my water. I do potassium citrate in the morning, potassium citrate in the evening. I do magnesium glycinate in the morning and magnesium glycinate in the PM. And, you know, if you're constipated also, it could be a lack of magnesium. Some people need to add in magnesium citrate in order to stop being constipated. So constipation is another question that I get a lot. I don't see it as much on high-fat carnivore. Most people have the opposite issue. But if you are constipated, there's probably an electrolyte issue going on there as well. You may want to add some magnesium citrate to see if you can get things moving. We've got Finland in the house. Hello. We have Argentina in the house. So let's say I had those. It was oxalates dumping was causing my, I think, crashes. So going slower. Yeah, oxalates, we have kind of stopped talking about that so much in the carnivore community, but it's still a thing. There is a binder that I used for oxalate dumping when I first had it. And it's I think I linked up below this video in the list that's called Sarah's favorite carnivore tools, but it's called GI Detox. And I did have to take that for a while. But yeah, oxalate dumping can definitely cause some issues for people. Let's see. Hi, I have lowered carbs because I'm borderline diabetic, but I have been hypoglycemic also. So this is another one I would definitely say join Stephanie's group. But here's the thing for hypoglycemic. Now, I was hypoglycemic too, even after a year of carnivore, and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. But once I had that continuous glucose monitor on my arm, I was clear that I was hypoglycemic. So I had to eat more often. So I bumped it up to 3 meals per day. And in between meals, I drank meat broth with ghee or butter in it, whatever fat I could tolerate at the time. So if you're hypoglycemic, you may need to actually eat more often. This is a big thing that Stephanie Keto Person talks about quite a bit in her group. You know, in keto and carnivore, it's a big push to do fasting and do your fasting to fix your insulin and your blood sugar. I think actually Dr. Rob Sivas just talked about this in a video he did. And thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are literally the best. Like, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for that. It helps so much. Christopher wants to know, how much magnesium glycinate do you take? So I think I take I did a video on supplements where I gave the exact milligram numbers, but I want to say it's 400 milligrams in the AM and then 400 milligrams in the PM. And if I'm super stressed, because when you're stressed out, your body pees out your minerals a lot quicker. If I'm super stressed, I'll bump a little magnesium glycinate in at lunchtime too. It's just depending on my stress levels. I'm having Morley Robbins on. I did an interview with him and the file got corrupted, unfortunately. So I'm talking with Morley Robbins again this next Monday. He's just done a couple interviews with Sarah and Ashley, the Strong Sisters. And so he's fascinating. He talks about minerals and our body's ability to hold on to minerals. So make sure you stay tuned for that because there'll be more talk about magnesium and these minerals that we need. So, all right, you guys, if I missed your question, make sure you drop it in there. Let me make sure I didn't miss any of these. Okay, so this is a question I get a lot. Someone says, what do you suggest for people who don't have a gallbladder and may have trouble? So Kelly Hogan actually does not have a gallbladder. She just did a video. She did a video on that maybe like 6 months ago where she talked about it. So yes, you can absolutely do carnivore or keto or high fat carnivore with no gallbladder. What happens is that your liver actually will make an adaptation. My friend, John, the Keto Road, I love him. He's great. We need to get his channel boosted up, by the way. So go to the Keto Road, subscribe to his channel. I absolutely love him. He just did a video on this maybe like 2 days ago about not having a gallbladder or having gallbladder issues. Essentially, if you don't have a gallbladder, your liver, the human body is so amazing. Your liver will adapt because the gallbladder actually does not make bile. What it does is it concentrates the bile. So your liver will actually adapt. It may take some time. This is why you may want to start with low carb, high fat. Like you can still be ketogenic and eat some white rice, right? So Stephanie will have some people with severe gallbladder issues or gallbladder sludge start off low carb, high fat, or do like 70-30 and bump it up. Keep trying to go up with the fat. So your liver will adjust if you don't have a gallbladder. DM House says, love Morley Robbins, super helpful. Magnesium info changed. Yeah, so he's a big one on magnesium. He's a fascinating guy to talk to. So I'm excited to get that out here on the channel. Sing It says, I feel more calm since I took Stephanie's advice and stopped fasting. Swore by it before. By the way, no gallbladder. Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's a lot of people that don't have a gallbladder, but they're able to do higher fat. It just is, your body has to actually adapt to it. You probably don't want to just like jump head first into it. This is where you may want to work with a coach or get some help, but your body can adapt. It is possible to do high fat diet with no gallbladder. And yeah, the no more fasting. I mean, that's one of my recommendations for adapting to a high fat carnivore diet is to not fast. And like I said, we're told fast, fast, fast. It's the best thing for you. Here's all the benefits. All we're ever told about is the benefits. And we don't talk about how that downregulates the thyroid, how it can really cause some problems for people because it's a stressor, you know. And I think if you have a stress-free life, if you're already keto adapted, you know, you've been doing your keto adapted 6 months or more, you have a stress-free life, that maybe you can start playing around fasting and it's okay. But if you have a lot of stresses in your life, hello, it's 2020, then maybe not do it for a little while. Because the thing is, this is what was scary for me to not fast. I thought I'm going to gain a bunch of weight if I don't fast. And that's not true. It's just, you know, it's still the energy balance ratio. If you eat more food than your body is burning off, that's when you're going to gain weight. And that's the thing with a high fat carnivore diet. People will gain weight on a high fat carnivore diet because the portions are more dense. You're going to be eating a less volume of food with a high fat carnivore diet. So that's just something to really, to be mindful of. That's why I do encourage people to kind of measure when they first start off, weigh things out, and just, you don't have to track forever at all. You don't have to do that, but just to kind of get a feel for how much you're eating, because it is going to be different. It's a different feeling of satiety. So now when I eat, I have to wait a little bit. Like I'll give myself like 10 minutes. I'll kind of say, okay, this is how much I plan to eat for this meal. My brain is kind of like, we need more, because I'm still working with the intuitive eating and hunger signals and all that stuff, because I just jacked myself up pretty badly with too much forced fasting. So I'll push away and I'll wait like 10 minutes. And some with high fat, it takes a bit longer for you to get that feeling of satiety because it's not a volume feeling. It's not the volume feeling in your hunger that and your stomach that you would get from eating like 2 pounds of meat. So I hope that makes sense, you guys, with just like waiting a minute to let the satiety kick in. It's different. It's not a volume feeling. Let's read this one. Every time I felt bad on carnivore, I was told just to eat more meat. It's only after finding Stephanie, I realized I was eating too much protein and not enough fat. Yeah, Christopher, I'm like, Stephanie is my girl. I don't know if you guys caught it in the very beginning of the stream, but I think today's her birthday. Facebook told me it was her birthday. So if you guys are in her group or go to her Instagram or her Facebook, she's the one who's been really advocating for this because, like I said in the very beginning of the stream, for a while, keto, everyone doing keto was like terrified of protein. Steak turns into cake. And entered carnivore and everyone's like, oh, screw it, eat as much protein as you like, you know, and then some carnivores will be like, oh, if you feel bad, eat more meat. If you're gaining weight, eat more meat. If you feel tired, eat more meat. And it's like this solution for everything. And it's just bad advice, honestly. It's totally bad advice. It's bad advice to just eat more if you're feeling bad. There's probably something that needs to be tweaked. And you're probably not in ketosis, especially if you're exhausted after every single meal, you're not sleeping. So yes, Christopher, I'm with you. Thank you so much for all the work you do. I'm new to counting macros. Did you say 90% fat to 10% protein is a good ratio for high fat? So Ashley, yes, this is what I started with to get keto adapted. And that's what Stephanie recommends to get keto adapted. Now, other people are going to say you could probably get away with 80-20 or 85-15. But for me, because I didn't have a menstrual cycle at the time, I was having a lot of issues. I went for it. I went for that therapeutic 90-10 and I feel good there. I stay there. So yeah. Sing It says, so true, have lost 2 pounds this month with no fasting. Woohoo, yay. 200 grams of fat, not about the weight though, health first. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I didn't have a menstrual cycle and this brought it back. I had horrible menstrual issues. Nothing fixed it until I did this. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of it. I think it's so helpful for people. We just have to drop this fear of fat. And it's about, if you're overeating, you're probably going to gain weight. And you can overeat on carnivore. You can overeat on keto. Yeah. So let's see. Try to get these in order. The satiety feeling I get on fat is so real. I used to get full feeling in stomach, but want to keep eating. The satiety I get with fat lets me know I'm really done. Yeah. So it's like, it's just weird. You have to learn how to be in touch with your body a little bit differently when you're doing high fat because you're not going to feel that volume of fullness. So you do have to kind of slow it down, which is hard for me because I'm like, oh, I want to just eat. You know, I love eating. Thank you for going against the carnivore crowd saying it matters to not just eat meat and drink water. I think this is my issue. I've been carnivore for 4 years now. Yeah, I mean, I have taken a lot of crap, you guys. I actually I'm thinking about hiring somebody right now to manage some of my comments. This is what I'm thinking, like having someone to go on and scrub the really mean ones and then leave the other ones so I can because I still want to respond to everyone because I love you guys and I love all the kind comments and I want to get to everybody, but I'm at the point where I'm gonna have to hire somebody to start scrubbing the really mean and hateful ones because I do take a lot of hate for kind of going against that common carnivore keto advice of, you know, do OMAD, do fasting. If it's not working, just eat more meat. Electrolytes don't matter. Like I'm trying really hard to just speak my truth and then like to listen to people, you know, just to listen to people. So that makes so much sense. I'm doing OMAD, but considering stopping now. I mean, I think that, yeah, for me, OMAD just never really did anything good for me. Some people swear by it and love it, but what it started to do for me was down-regulate my metabolism. So that could be another reason for a weight loss stall, Jimmy, is that our bodies, like I mentioned with the liver, the gallbladder, our bodies are so smart. So if I restrict too much, then my basal metabolic rate, my body will stop doing stuff. So my non-exercise energy, you know, I will stop fidgeting. I will talk slower. I will not take as many steps. Like your body is so adaptive. My resting heart rate will dip really low. So if I've not eaten enough, I will check my Oura Ring data the next morning and my resting heart rate is like way down in the 40s rather than where it usually is like the 50s and 60s. So that's how I know I'm not eating enough sometimes, is that my resting heart rate will go lower. So your body's so smart. And what I see with a lot of people that are doing a lot of OMAD, a lot of fasting, is that they are down regulating their metabolism. I'm not going to say damage their metabolism, because you can always get that back. You can always fix your metabolism. But just overdoing it, and their body is like slowing down, and they're having hormonal issues, like I was, just a lot of hormonal issues, because what we don't realize is that the first place that the body takes the blood flow from is your sex organs. So women that have a lot of menstrual issues, your body's working really hard to keep you alive. So reproduction for men and for women is not a priority. So men will see their testosterone tank with too much fasting or calorie restriction. Women will see their cycles go or become really irregular, because your body is prioritizing keeping you alive, keeping your heart beating. So there's my little rant on that. This person says, if I go 90% fat and 10% protein, I go out of ketosis. I would guarantee you it's probably not your macros. I would say it's probably something else, but I don't know. It's like hard for me to say anything off of just that one statement. Miss Tree, I'll take that job. Okay. Anna says, my problem is that dawn phenomenon. Once I go to bed and wake up, my blood sugar is high. I mean, I would still, with the higher protein, when I wasn't doing like a high fat carnivore, I would still have a really high blood sugar. And that's also stress too. So Amy Berger actually just did a great video on her channel where she talks about blood sugar, because somebody on here was like, in my Instagram questions was like, if I do a really high intensity workout, then my blood sugar's high. And I'm like, well, that's what your body is supposed to do that. So check out Amy Berger, her channel, and why is my blood sugar high on keto? Because she really talks well about this. But my dawn phenomenon numbers were like 100 or more. And now when I wake up, it's like 79, 80 at the highest, unless I didn't get a good night of sleep, unless my sleep was really crappy, or I'm really stressing out about something. So it's a lot. Let's see. I've had a hysterectomy, so I have no idea if my hormone cycle, I still have my ovaries, is out of whack. What other symptoms are indicative of your hormones being messed up? So Becky Niles is a good one. So her and I think we touched on this in the chat that we did a couple weeks ago, because she also has had a hysterectomy. And a good way to tell your hormones are out of whack, first thing that will happen is you're going to start having sleep disturbances. So you're going to start having cortisol spikes all night. You're going to feel more tired, have less energy, overall just not really feel well. So I know I talk a lot about the menstrual cycle and women's hormones, but yeah, if you're waking up a lot at night, if you're seeing your A1C go up, if you're having a lot of histamine reactions, all of this could be indicative of some kind of a hormonal issue. And then your energy level is the big, big, big one. So those are just some things to look out for. In my personal, I'm not a doctor, opinion. I have to keep saying that. Let's see. Thanks for your input. I'm doing it my own way. I can't do the way the veterans advise. I do intuitive eating and fasting only, eating when hungry. Yes. So you got to find out what works best for you guys. I'm a big proponent of that. That's why I have all the Let's Get Checked links. That's why I have the continuous glucose monitor. I'm a big proponent of testing stuff on your own and finding out what works best for you. Now, we can learn stuff from other people, but don't live and die by, this person did this, I'm just going to copy what they did, eat exactly what they did, and expect their same results. It just doesn't work that way. Let's see. If doing the high fat, moderate protein, no carbs, what do we need to look for? Are poop color dangers? Okay, so poop, yes. Now this is actually a thing, you guys. So doing this approach, you do want to watch out, make sure your poop doesn't float, make sure it's not gray. Stephanie talks a lot about this in her group. So if you're having like gray poop or poop that's floating, that could be gallbladder issue, could be digestion issue. So again, I'm not an expert on that, but that is something I hear her talk about. So I would join that group and just go in that group and search. Let's see. Yeah, it says same, only ovaries, wake up at 12:40 and 3:30 every night. That's good to know. Yeah, that could be hormonal issues, because cortisol is a hormone, and waking up a lot at night is showing that you may have some cortisol spikes there in the night. let's see. All right, guys, I'm going to get off here in just a couple minutes because I have to go eat. I'm so hungry. Speaking of all this food, I used to be a high carb gym rat. Now I eat high fat carnivore and hardly do any exercise and look and feel much better. Do you think exercise is overrated? So I love exercise for the mental health benefits, but I don't exercise the same way I used to. I used to do powerlifting. I would try to deadlift, and I was squatting like 200 pounds on my back when I only weighed like 140 pounds. Like I loved all that stuff. And I would spend hours in the gym because I've been a yoga teacher for over 10 years. So I would spend 3 hours a day working out. Loved it. Now don't talk to Steph about that because Steph still will spend 3 hours a day working out, but I think she's different. I think with exercise, I think it's important that we continue to build lean body mass. And for me, I go swim laps. I do it for the mental health benefits. But I think that to go, do these crazy hardcore workouts constantly, I don't think is necessary for people. I think that people should exercise for mental health and also to keep building lean body mass. It's going to look different for everybody else. I think also being in ketosis, eating this way, eating the high fat carnivore diet or even a keto, I think will support your body metabolically so that you don't have to go spend 3 hours a day in the gym. But that's, again, just my personal opinion. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm just like those are just my opinions. Question here. I have trouble getting in enough fat to make 200 grams. Eating straight beef fat is hard. What would you suggest? So I love raw beef suet. What Stephanie has people do is drink meat broth and put tablespoons of butter, tablespoons of ghee in there. That's a wonderful carrier for fatty teas. Putting ghee butter into your tea, whipping that up really nice. So just play around with that kind of stuff. For me, getting 200 grams of fat is so ridiculously easy. Like I have to be careful. I'm one of the ones that would just literally eat fat all day if I could. I up my fat, lowered the protein, and guess what? My period is back. Yay! You guys have no idea how many messages like that I get. Like it's crazy how many messages I get from women who are like, I got my cycle back just from, I quit fasting, I went high fat, and I lowered my protein, and my period came back. It's amazing. All right, I'll answer a few more of these, and I do have to go eat because your girl needs some lunch. I swam a bunch of laps and then taught yoga and then jumped straight on here. I sleep at 10 nightly, but wake up 3 or 4 o'clock every night. CGM is always 80, 90. Could it be because of OMAD? I mean, it could be that what fasting is, like I said, is a stressor on your body. So anytime you add a stressor to your body, you are adding more cortisol. So, I mean, it could be just the stress from fasting. And then are you able to go back to sleep though? Because I think it's okay to wake up like once a night to go pee, but it's more for people who are waking up at midnight and 1 a.m. and 2 and 3 and 4. And it's like, you're just waking up all night. You can't get sleep. So I think it's okay to wake up once. And if your CGM says 80, 90, I wouldn't be super freaked out concerned. Because usually if you're having like a major cortisol spike, for me, my blood sugar when I would wake up would be like 120, 130. And then during the day, it'd be 80s, 90s. So yeah, it's hard to say. Okay, guys, we're at 103. So thank you guys so much. I hadn't done a live in so long. It's been like 2 weeks. I just have been letting things kind of fall by the wayside. So I appreciate you guys all for coming on today and for all the questions. And I really do hope this was helpful. I'm totally open to doing more of these. So if there's something you guys want to talk about or have a question about, then, always feel free to drop it in a comment. I'm around. Check me out on Instagram. You can send me a DM over there. I try to read my messages over there if I don't always get to my comments here. So you guys are literally the best. I really appreciate you. And I get so many amazing, kind comments. So I really do appreciate you guys. And I hope that this was helpful. Again, not medical advice, just my observational advice. And yeah. So thank you guys. Have a really, really awesome rest of your day. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.